Hello and welcome to the apparently 7th part of this fanfiction reading of I Scream by TheNeopolitan. So, I didn't realize that there were 7 parts, or that this is the 7th part of it. As I was writing it down, I was writing down the 5th part, and I didn't realize that there was already a 5th and 6th part, because I can't tell from my writing what's going on that piece of paper where I sort of, I guess, schedule all my videos. So, yeah, let's get going on chapter 23 and a half. For whatever reason, I guess because it's probably, I guess it's kind of short. Okay, so it's been a while since I read this, but it's not been that long since the last episode came out, because, of course, it hasn't came out yet as of me recording this, because, I don't know anymore. So, so they're gearing up to go on a mission to take down the White Fang, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, let's go. That night, teams Ruby, Rainbow, and Juniper, I don't know why you didn't abbreviate Juniper like you did the other two, met outside the school in a large circle. We split from our teams and moved to our partners. I stood beside Yang and looked around the ring. Rach stood between Blake and Bolt. She took a small step forward and addressed the group. Alright, everyone. For most of us, this is a recon mission. A simple get in, find what you can, and get out. Do not engage anyone. We're spread too thin to provide sufficient backup. At this point, Nora and a few others ready for backup protested with a few hays. Enough to take down the entire White Fang and whoever they're working with. At this point, everyone fell silent, the weight of the danger settling on each of us. Be safe, Ruby said softly. For once, her childish features were completely serious. She came over and hugged her sister. I walked over to Wolf and bumped at his side. That means you too, I told him. Me, he scoffed with a grin as he nudged me back. You're the one going to collect the bounty on what? On her own head? Whatever. I smiled back at him, turning to go back to Yang. He caught my hand and pulled me back to him in a hug. My eyes grew wide with surprise, but I closed them and hugged him back. I mean it, Neo. You better come back in one piece, he mumbled into my hair. Have I ever not? I asked him. He let me go and grinned down at me, saying, No, I guess not. How about a little contest? The winner is the one that can stay out of the most trouble. What are the stakes? I asked, arching an eyebrow at him. Loser buys ice cream? Done, I grinned. Are you? Bolt asked, calling our attention back to the group. I felt my cheeks heat up a little. Stares from the group burned into me, but the serious... What? But the seriousness of what was ahead cooled everything down. We joined our little groups and split from the circle. I jumped on the back of Yang's motorcycle and watched Wolf as he walked away with Ruby and Weiss. I worried about him. What if he was walking right into the White Fang base, and what if they got caught? Hold on tight, Yang told me with a smirk. I barely had enough time to wrap my arms around her waist as the tires screeched and we went flying forward. Okay. Oh, good. An ad. Isn't that wonderful? It's time to check my notifications. Oh, good. Another Wattpad story. Let's check this. Ooh. All right. End of the ad. All right. This is wonderful. Oh, good. What question am I going to have to answer? Ooh, entertainment. Wow, that isn't... Can I pick? Can't. Oh, I know what that one is. Oh, let's just quit. Come on. All right. Chapter 24. Yang and I flew down the city streets on her motorcycle. Luckily, Yang Luckily, Yang had tied her hair back into a ponytail so her golden locks didn't fly into my face. They might still do that if I'm honest. I mean, you might have to, put, tie the hair in a little bit of a different configuration than just a ponytail in order to not have it fly into your passenger's face. Anyways, what's our plan? I shouted up to her over the roar of the engine and the wind rushing past us. Just wing it, she shouted back to me. I said nothing in return. Part of me scoffed mentally, but the other part grinned in appreciation for how Yang was going about this. She was probably used to being able to just walk into places and use her strength to take control of situations. This would probably work now. The goons we were headed to see were just the next step in the messenger line. They were expecting to move a dead body or me defeated and securely tied up. Oh, I remember this. Okay. Yang made the bike come to a screeching halt as the tires slid to the side and we parked next to a stone wall. She pulled off her yellow helmet and took her hair down. She shook her gold hair loose and tucked her sunglasses into her shirt. I removed the spare black helmet that she had lent to me and I slid off the bike. We were parked at the docks. Looking around, I could see giant metal containers. Actually, I may have a plan, Yang said, looking down at me. I arched an eyebrow at her, silently asking her what her big plan was. It's a bounty on your head, right? Who has access to that? Asked me. Anyone with a criminal record and access to information. Why? I asked in confusion. I'm thinking we could get some money out of these creeps before we beat information out of them. Yang grinned down at me, putting her hands on her hips with confidence. I smirked up at her, saying, oh, God, okay. Whatever. I like the way you think. We might not want to tell Osmond, though. How do you want to pull this off? Saying nothing, Yang grinned wider and pulled some thick rope out of the side bag of her bike. Part of me wanted to ask her why she had something like this in her motorcycle bag, but I didn't bother asking. She tied my arms behind my back in a very complicated-looking knots. Then she took my umbrella in one hand and my elbow in the other, winked at me, and led me through a maze of shipping containers. She found the one labeled for my bounty, opened the door, and gave me a small shove inside. It was a giant room made by a few containers welded together. It seems like an inefficient way of doing things. It was very dark. It was so dark that Yang and I couldn't see the walls of the container. There was a single bulb hanging in the middle of the room. Two white fang men sat at a table directly under the light. It's about time you showed up, one of the masked men said gruffly. Man, how hard is it to nab one little girl? Clearly he was expecting one of the 3 white fang members that attacked me at the library. It's a lot harder than you'd expect, Yang told him with attitude as she pushed me into the light. The 2 men were surprised and raised their guns at us. Who the hell are you? The others shouted. Just a girl looking for some extra cash. Yang smirked at them. My buddy Junior said you'd be willing to pay a good price for my friend here. She gave me a little shove forward to sell the bit, but the glare that I gave her was genuine. It was her turn to smirk at me. I could tell that this bit wasn't part of the act, but probably to pay me back for some of the times I had smirked at her to get her angry. To be honest, I respected that, but I couldn't show that now. The 2 men looked at each other until one of them shrugged. The other opened a silver briefcase that was sitting on the table. Inside was a considerable amount of money, even more than I was expecting for my head. The man shut the briefcase and held it out to her as the other man came around the table to hold my other elbow. Yang took the money and held my umbrella out to him. I took this as my chance to strike. I kicked the handle of my umbrella, sending the tip into the man's gut with a lot of force. At the same time, I tugged one small part of the rope, and it fell off of my arms, so I could catch my umbrella as it rebounded off of the first guy. The force in his stomach caused the front part of his body to lurch forward, which then met with Yang's fist punching him down into the table. As she knocked him out, I kicked the legs out from under the man that was holding my arm, and then used my umbrella to knock him into the ground. He was unconscious as well. Yang and I looked at each other. Was that it? More lights flicked on, lighting up the rest of the container and revealing several other white fang members, all of them locking their guns and preparing to fire. Oh, good, Yang cited. What? I was worried that this was going to be too easy. Then she grinned out at me and asked, you ready for this? I grinned as I opened my umbrella and rested on my shoulder as the white fang goons took their aim. "Oh yeah," I replied, before the first shot was fired. "Oh yeah," I replied, before the first shot was fired. Yang and I were in motion. Using my umbrella to flick the unconscious man's weapon into the air, I then spun and kicked it, sending it flying into someone at the end of the room. Another man came up behind me. I quickly dodged his swing and avoided a gun blast as I ducked under his arm. I used my umbrella to jab him in the gut and then brought my knee into his jaw. With a sickening crack, the jawbone broke, and the force of his teeth cracking together rendered him unconscious, and he fell backwards to the ground. God damn it. This does happen, and it's so annoying. I don't know why. Okay. Okay, where were we? Oh wait, I wasn't there yet. Okay, another man came up behind me. I quickly dodged his swing and avoided a gun blast as I ducked under his arm. I used my umbrella to jab him in the gut and then brought my knee into his jaw. With a sickening crack, the jawbone broke, and the force of his teeth cracking together rendered him unconscious as he fell backwards to the ground. I then held my umbrella in front of me for a brief moment, using it to block a few shots as I checked to see how Yang was doing. The blonde was practically burning with energy. She took a running start. As she took a running start, she pounded her two gauntlets together and then punched one of the members in the face, taking out two behind him as well. I closed my umbrella and used it to block the fists of two more White Fang members that had rushed me. I kicked one back and then kneed the other in the gut. I brought my elbow down on his head, knocking him to the ground before I kicked him in the face with enough force to take him out as well. I flipped away as the other one came at me and more shots were fired. As he came closer, I backflipped into a handstand and used the upward momentum to knock away his gun. I brought my legs back down as I stayed in a crouching position, dodging a few more of his swings. And then brought myself up, using his shoulder to push myself into the air and behind him, locking my arms around his neck in a hold. Other White Fang members fired at me, the blast hitting the man I was holding instead of me. For a moment I paused in disbelief. Who would shoot one of their own so carelessly? I let the man's dead body fall to the ground before I charged the others. Yang got swarmed by many members at once. She managed to hit a few, knocking them out with a single hit each, but then four members grabbed her arms, two holding her on each side as a female White Fang member held a gun to her face. "Die, pathetic human," she sneered and ready to fire. I ran up behind Yang and the remaining members, jumped up, landing on Yang's shoulders with my hands before I pushed off of her and towards the White Fang woman with the gun. The legs wrapped around her head and using my momentum to swing my body, she flew backwards with force. I released her, rolling gracefully back to my feet and attacked another goon holding Yang's right arm. The woman flew a good distance back and cracked her head on the ground. With only one guy holding her right arm, Yang brought her left knee into the guy's groin. He groaned in pain, releasing her arm and falling to the ground. Yang then used her waist strength to bring her leg back down, twisting her hips and using the momentum and a blast from her gauntlets to punch through both people holding her left arm. As they fell to the ground a good distance away as Yang punched the man who was holding himself. I was holding himself and kneeling on the ground with enough force to dent the floor of the crate. I folded my umbrella and looked at Yang, who was panting slightly. "Well, that was fun," she told me, looking around at the scattered, unconscious bodies of the White Fang. "Fun's over," a familiar woman's voice said from a door at the other side of the crate. Yang and I looked up to see the voice as Emerald and Mercury walked in. Yang recognized them as the two who had snuck into the school. Realizing how close these creeps had gotten to her little sister set Yang into a rage. With a furious snarl, she charged them, just as recklessly as if they were two more White Fang goons. "Yang, wait," I called, but she had already reached them. She raised her loaded gauntlet high, ready to punch Mercury in the face, but he moved quicker. He spun very similar to the way I did and kicked the blonde with enough force to knock her all the way back to me. She landed on her back, smacking her head into the steel floor and slid away. She wasn't getting up. I took a defensive position near Yang and got ready to fight. What? Why? What? I'm so confused. Okay. Hello again, sweetheart, Mercury taunted me with a grin as he and Emerald casually walked forward. I glanced towards Yang and readied myself. If she didn't get up soon, this wasn't going to end well for either of us. It just said insufficient storage, and I don't understand why, because I shouldn't be having those problems. So, chapter 25. Wolf, Ruby, and Weiss made their way through the forest. It was nighttime and the sun was disappearing. Wolf was holding the map, and when suddenly he stopped and looked around. Well, this is it. The three looked around. All that they could see was more forest. There was clearly no White Fang base nearby. This can't be it. Give me that, Weiss snapped, snatching the map from his hands. Using her scroll navigator, she realized that they were exactly where the red dot was on the map, and the map Raish had given them. Maybe it was a trick that White Fang dude gave us the wrong coordinates. Wolf sighed. Low-life scum. I can't believe you walked all the way to this wretched forest and found nothing, Weiss huffed. Wolf rolled his eyes at her attitude, though it was almost amusing how worked up she could get. He enjoyed being in the forest anyways. Let's take a break before we go back. We've walked so far, Ruby sighed, trying to find a place to sit. Maybe if you hadn't stayed up all night blabbing about the mission, you wouldn't be so tired, Weiss told her, though with less venom in her voice than usual. I was excited, Ruby yawned. She found a large boulder, that's not how you spell boulder, that was low to the ground and sat on it. As soon as she sat, the boulder sank down. With a yelp, Ruby's eyes went wide and she jumped into Weiss's arms. Ah, it moved! It's a tricky rock! Tricky rock! She cried as the rock began to slowly move back into its original place. Weiss had caught Ruby out of instinct, but now rolled her eyes at the red-caped girl's childish ways. She dropped her arms and let Ruby fall to the ground as her feet. She was an heiress, not a babysitter, but she made sure Ruby didn't fall too hard. Hey, Ruby pouted. Weiss rolled her eyes and handed Ruby a cookie. All right, come on. Ruby's frown disappeared in an instant, and she scarfed down the cookie in one bite. I wonder what that rock does, Weiss said, Weiss said, though she was asking the group. She used her foot to press down on it, and it slowly sank again. Wolf's ears twitched, hearing something that the girls could not. Get down, he warned, pulling the two girls into the brush and out of sight. He signaled for them to be quiet before Weiss could demand to know what he was doing. He peeked out of the brush to see a White Fang member looking around the rock. Damn squirrels, he muttered before turning around and walking back into the woods. Wolf looked to Weiss and Ruby and motioned for them to be quiet and stay put. Making almost no sound, Wolf followed the other faunas to a small hill. The White Fang boy sighed and leaned against it. Wolf purposely snapped a loud branch, drawing the other boy's attention. Who goes there? The White Fang member demanded, trying to sound tough. Weiss and Ruby watched as Wolf crept up behind him. Behind him, the other boy wrapped his arms around the White Fang boy's neck in a lock, slowly strangling him until he passed out. Wolf then tucked the other boy's body back into the bushes. Weiss and Ruby watched him with wide eyes. What? Wolf asked himself. Wolf asked them self-consciously. He's still alive, just knocked out for a bit. The girls relaxed, and then looked over at what the White Fang man had been guarding. In the small hill was a door leading underground. In a flurry of rose petals, Ruby dashed over to the rock, sat on it, and then dashed back. The door opened, then slowly began to close as the rock slid back into place. It moved slowly enough so that someone could press the rock and then walk through the door at a normal pace. Wolf, Weiss, and Ruby ducked inside as the door closed behind them. Inside was a set of stone steps leading down. It was brightly lit by torches going down along the side. The three moved quietly, each wondering what they would come across when they got to the bottom. None of them saw what was coming. At the bottom of the staircase were many crates, similar to the ones the White Fang had packed the train with. Okay. The trio ducked behind some and looked observed. Both of those words need to be put there. What was in front of them? More bombs. Ruby asked, seeing how many crates there were. Not bombs, just one big one, look, Wolf said, indicating to an area in front of them. Sitting there was a large contraption filled with giant tubes packed with fire and lightning dust. What would they possibly need a bomb like that for? A bomb of that, Ruby asked. A bomb of that size would be enough to level the Schnee Dust Company, or any company for that matter, Weiss said, her eyes growing wide with fear and realization. Or an academy full of future huntsmen and huntresses, Wolf asked. We have to shut it down, Ruby said with determination. How do we do that, genius? Do you even know how to safely shut down a bomb? Weiss huffed, putting her hands on her hip. Okay. She put both of her hands on one of her hips to make sense. I mean, that's how that works. You got the blue wire? The red one. Weiss slapped a hand on her face, tired of Ruby's ridiculousness, no matter how good-natured or adorable she was trying to be. No, that is how you get us all blown up. Our mission here is complete, Wolf said. What? Ruby demanded. He's right, Weiss sighed. Our mission was to sneak in, see if this was the White Fang base, and sneak back out. Clearly this is her base, and we know this is their base, and we know they have a giant bomb. So now we sneak away, go get our team, then the headmaster beacon, so someone who can actually unwire a bomb. Okay, Ruby agreed reluctantly. She didn't like leaving, knowing they were leaving a weapon of mass destruction in the hands of bad people. But Wolf and Weiss were right. It was time to go. The trio turned to leave and came face to face with 12 armed White Fang members pointing guns at their chests and faces. Uh-oh, Ruby groaned. Things got worse as more members surrounded them, and the lieutenant stepped through the line of guards. He towered over everyone else, ready. He was reading his chainsaw blade on his shoulder. How about readying his chainsaw blade on his shoulder? Ah, Miss Schnee, we meet again. You'll not be lucky enough to escape this time. Wolf, Ruby, and Weiss all took battle positions, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Ruby, Weiss said softly, trying to keep her voice calm, but every bit of her wanted to shake with fear. I don't know if I can beat him. If it hadn't been for Blake, the lieutenant would have killed her on that day of the train. Ruby's silver eyes met Weiss's ice blue ones. We can beat him together. Not like this we can't, Wolf said, scanning their enemy. Thanks, Mr. Sunshine. Weiss scoffed. No, he's right, Ruby realized. We have to break them up. When I say so, run as fast as you can, Wolf told them. Right, the girls nodded. Ready? Wolf started, pulling rounds of dust from his pockets. He held them up and threw them down while shouting, Go! That is it for now. Chapter 16, or 26, wow, will be coming up next time, because I need to check this storage problem and see if I'm actually running out of storage or something. I don't know how. But we'll still check and make sure that there's no actual problems. And yeah, because I have plans to do more. I have plans to do a lot of recording today. So got to get through that. So yeah, we're done for now. Next time, chapter 26.